this whole conversation started kind of with some of us talking and me personally not knowing enough. I still don't know enough about AI and what's happening, and it's moving so quickly. I felt like we just needed to start talking about it to even know what questions to ask. And so I suggested this virtual discussion, which is also sort of just a social, semi-social thing. Um, and then I was connected to Josh at Acuity and started talking to him, and questions came up as we were talking. I mean, this whole thing has become what it is based on just putting one foot forward. So um, I'm here to learn. I've only dabbled in AI. It seems like from the survey, out of 17 people that responded, 14% are using AI at all,
I'm
whether it's for
sorry.
text, data, research, or images. Does anyone want to talk about some of the tools they've tried in lighting using AI?
My name's Megan. I can start. I'm excited, Josh, to hear what you have to say about Firefly because I actually did try Firefly. I love Firefly for like fun images, but I could not get them to look professional.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what I kind of entered in terms of like, it can take a paragraph of information, from what I could tell to generate almost like a rendered version of an environment, but I could never get it to not look like a fantasy world, which is kind of fun, right? But not exactly what I was hoping for. And similarly, there were a couple of other programs that I've dabbled with where you could bring in a 3D model, like SketchUp view, and then try to alter it. But again, it ended up looking more like Fantasyland than reality. And so I'm interested to see if anyone's had better luck with generating more realistic renderings or views in that way.
And it is a good point with Firefly. I would say until last week, I would say that was my position on it. So the good news is it's all improving. So, and I'll show you what I've learned so far in a week on the new update.
Yeah, Megan, the times I've tried it, I've gotten a similar thing. But I tend to just write really short prompts, and then I get Cove Light will just be like this. It looks more like neon than Cove.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
tried to, write a prompt to get the image of a tree during daytime to look like it was uplit at night. And I just got pictures that looked like there was a huge garage light behind the tree.
Mhm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't try to revise it a whole bunch. I kind of
Mm-hmm.
lost patience pretty quickly, actually. And but I'm sure that's part of it. It's thinking through how to talk to whatever tool you're
Mhm.
working with, how to
Mm-hmm.
think like that tool, I guess.
I've definitely had better luck with written forms of AI than I have for image-based AI platforms at this point. So, like narratives or anything like that, giving word caps, just written documents in general have been much more successful than rendered imagery. Are you going to talk about that as well, Josh, or are we focusing really on rendered environments today?
We can absolutely talk about that. I'm gonna focus on images,
Mhm.
but they kind of work hand in hand a little bit, in
Okay.
my opinion.
Mhm.
But if it's like, I know there's some tools out there that are more like about building specs and stuff like that. I definitely
Mhm.
am not an expert in that. So,
Yeah.
someone else will have to support me on that one.
Okay. Yeah, I would love for AI to help us with specifications at some point. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
When also from the survey, when people said what they had tried, the list includes ChatGPT, obviously, Gemini, Copilot, Fathom, Midjourney, Perplexity, Chrome AI, and Parspec. And I think Parspec is one of
Price
those
spec.
related to product selection quote submittals. A lot of the other ones are text research data. I've heard people looking up codes, like energy codes, ordinances for different cities through ChatGPT. Um, I even heard of someone writing code for Arduino through ChatGPT. I've never used Arduino, but I think some people do use it for specialty lighting purposes. I thought that was interesting. Um, Letter writing and email writing, a lot of people use AI for that. Meeting notes and summaries. Sorry if you can hear my dog barking. And yeah, most people's goals for using AI is to work more efficiently, just be informed about the latest technology, create renderings for inspiration, um, and um, removing the tedium of things like pricing, spec sheets, photometrics, which I haven't seen a lot of that with AI.
Hmm.
What resources do you know of to weigh the pros and cons of AI? Um, these are the answers I got. IT department, friends and colleagues, news articles, trial and error, and the novel 1984. um, and what are the best resources you know of for learning to use AI? Um, podcasts and blogs, YouTube, LinkedIn, general online searches, friends, and trying it out. So that's kind of the summary of the survey that we put out there. We've gotten some more people to join, and we're just sort of having a general discussion about AI for the next couple of minutes, and then Josh is going to present for 30 minutes, and then we'll have questions. You can drop your questions in the chat, and when he's done, we'll address the questions then. So does anyone else who's recently joined want to talk about their experience with AI or how they've used it, what's worked, what hasn't worked? Anybody? Gonzalo? Gonzalo is one of our chapter coordinators, as is Nikki Nicole, and I think Kate is on here as well.
Well, actually, my interaction with AI is very, very limited, mainly with text, questions, research, stuff like that. Just get an idea on topics that I'm probably getting into. Being a very, very small independent design firm that we have to do from management to actual design, drafting, specification, client interaction and such. The time that I can put into, getting deep into AI for imagery is I haven't had that chance. I'm actually getting myself into Revit now. So very excited about hearing all about it. Had a attended to one of the educations presentations about this same topic. So just very, very interested in getting a bit more information on how to get access to probably experimenting with it, hopefully soon.
Thing I've found in fiddling around with it, it's like you, Gonzalo. We're a small firm, and so it's don't have a whole lot of time to learn how to work it. But the experiences I've had working with it, um, it seems like if you've got enough data points, then you can do some interesting stuff with it. If I ask for a view of the U.S. Capitol at night under a starry sky, I can get something that sort of makes sense there because there are enough images of the U.S. Capitol out there to put something together. But if I go more specific, view of work by this architect at night, uplit with spots, they can't find that data, and so it doesn't know what to look at.
Hey, Carrie and team. I wanted to mention I'm in Knoxville, where the University of Tennessee has a strong architecture and interiors architecture program. And I've recently been on some reviews where it's a very, very heavy mid-journey generated imagery. And what I found is that oftentimes the imagery is quite distracting from the concept, from the overall design concept might be very, very strong, but then it's kind of like trying to fit the images into the concept and having kind of limited information like we're all, I think, coming up with in our own practices. And so it's interesting because I think it can also, from a student to professional world, it can be sometimes distracting at this point when trying to find the perfect thing and you can't and it doesn't make sense. Um, but the students are I mean, they're very engaged and interested and spending a lot of time and kind of growing up. They're honing their design skills. I'm not sure if it's translating to lighting design school specifically, but it's something that as we kind of reach younger professional development groups, they will be probably pretty capable of tracking as this technology develops.
Hey guys, Jennifer Sanborn from the New York City IALD. I just happened to see this event on the IALD events calendar, and so I logged in, or I signed up 30 minutes beforehand and I logged in. Jumping on that comment, I went to a Parsons thesis review last week, and one of the girls actually created her own tool to take a cut sheet. You fill out the cut sheet, it takes the information and it fills out your fixture schedule for you. So these students are like jumping full throttle into this, which is awesome. And I think it's going to really push the lighting industry into AI. One tool I've used, I started my own company 2 years ago, and I played around with Canva for my logo. I wasn't really excited with what it produced for me, but I did use Canva for a volunteer group that I'm working with called Night Lights in New Lebanon. And so that logo came out really nice. And it's free. There's a free version, obviously, there's a paid version. So that's been helpful. ChatGPT I use all the time for emails, like everyone else kind of said, emails, contract language, reviewing, risk management stuff with contracts. I use that a lot. I've heard of Midjourney and I've heard of Firefly, same kind of concerns. They're not really lighting realistic. So that's why I joined the call. I was like, do these guys know something I don't know? So excited to be here.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times that's the crux of it. It's like it's evolving so quickly. It's you have to keep joining these conversations to, stay with the conversation. So thanks for those comments, Diana and Jennifer. Josh, I think we're going to go ahead and let you start your presentation.
All right.
And everyone, if you have questions, again, just drop them in the chat and we'll look at those when at the end of his presentation.
So yeah, great. I love all the feedback too, because I think everyone's kind of at their own, level of trying out these things and their own experiences. And the reality is, it's not solving all of our problems yet. We're kind of in the middle of it, right? And some things are work really well, and some things are gonna evolve over time. And I would say our team, sorry, actually, to people know where I'm kind of coming from. Our team at Acuity is responsible for conceptual design and industrial design earlier on in like product content creation. But we also create a lot of marketing content. So we have to make sure whatever we're creating has to be commercially viable. It meets a certain quality expectation. I know and that a lot of you brought up. And the other thing that we do is also create new marketing technologies. So we're always exploring kind of the next big thing, or the next interesting thing that will add value to everyone. And so something like our AR app and the Lumen Arcade are some of the things we've recently put out there. So the I will say anecdotally, one thing that I kind of would encourage you all to maybe try if you're trying out a new AI tool or experience. It's really hard just to go in and try a prompt and be like, well, didn't work and walk away. I think there is kind of this iterative process, and it's over time. And I think it's kind of more of a creative journey, where you're exploring your creative abilities and how you can create something. So about 2 years ago, I was like, you know what? I just got to figure this stuff out. I need to get better at it. It's coming. It may not be where I need it, but I need to know where it stands today. And I just did 30 days of dailies, and I just on a daily basis I would try to make something. And some days I had an hour, some days I had 5 minutes, but I was able to make something every day, and I understood it a lot better. And it kind of propelled me into my next level of understanding and exploration. And so now I've been doing, I think, 120 days of dailies doing video work, and making a video every day, which is kind of insane in my mind because every time I've tried to make a video, it takes me weeks. So it's a pretty exciting time. Get to the next slide here. So we're going to look at a lot of broad things. I guess I hope that after seeing this, you're inspired to go try some of this stuff and just get more familiar with it. And this is a conversation, so I'd love to learn from everyone else too. I think there is so much out there, and there's so many new things, and I can't possibly absorb it all. So I'm happy to learn from everyone as well, and I think we'll all learn from any feedback that anyone has. But I think the big picture, I think for a lot of people is, at least for me, I guess, one of the toughest pills to swallow was I just spent the last 20 years of my career refining my technical expertise to figure out Revit, to figure out 3ds Max, to learn all these technical solutions to build up my abilities to deliver better work and add value to my companies that I worked for and so forth. And when AI kind of came in, it kind of bypasses all those, and you're like, wait a second, I just lost like all these skills that I've been building up. You just skipped over all those, and now I'm getting kind of outputs that are close to what I would spend weeks creating. So it was a little bit difficult to deal with that at first, but once I kind of understood, okay, I kind of see that I have my human skills that I've developed, but there's a lot of skills that, like writing. I'm a terrible writer, and just a lot of other skills that I just haven't really invested the time in building. I can now build those or enhance them with AI. And so I kind of see as we approach the future of work and how we do things. And I think there were a few people who said they have a smaller firm. I think you probably have the biggest opportunity, honestly, because you have the least amount of time and can really take advantage of these tools. But I see our future engagement will be this AI. We'll have these AI enhanced human skills, which is really exciting. So when someone approaches you, they know they can do a lot of, you can do a lot of things as an individual. This is not an extensive list. There are so many image generators out there. I kind of wanted to identify the big ones, but there are a lot of companies out there that also put wrappers around these, and they'll use Stable Diffusion as their base, and then there's this output, and they don't really tell you that, but that's kind of what's happening for a lot of these. I chose intentionally for today. I kind of want to explore. I picked that are my personal favorites, and it's kind of like Android and Apple. Everyone will have their favorite one depending on how they work and things they like. But we're going to look at Adobe Firefly, OpenAI's ChatGPT 4o, Image Gen 1. They're great with naming their products, and then Midjourney. So we'll look at all those three, and you get to kind of see the differences between these. This is an eye chart. Don't memorize this or look at it too closely, but this is something that we all kind of have to deal with, I think, as well. I've had more legal conversations. I'm not going to provide any legal advice. By the way, none of this is legal advice. And that's what the lawyers tell me to say too. But I think every business, individual, corporation has to look at these solutions and figure out, one, where do we stand on our legal risk approach? And I know there are some ethical issues as well. But currently, there is no legal precedence on using copyright material to train an image generation model. It's actually all right now. It's all in court. Actually, there's quite a few cases out there right now. So we don't really know. So the least legal risk potentially are the ones that are using licensed data sets. So something like Adobe Firefly, that's why we like to use it, especially if it's going to ever leave our doors from a commercial aspect. We know that it was trained on their copyright material. They're providing proper attribution to the artists, and there's a record of it all. So I think there's some great solutions in there. Whereas when you get down to say Flux or Stable Diffusion, they're using these public data sets. They were open license. They were actually using a CCO license in a lot of cases, but it's millions of images, and there's dirty data, we'll call it, and they may not actually have the CCO license that they thought they had. So, and that's where the risk comes into play. So, just something to consider as you evaluate these. There's going to be new models. There's always new things coming out. But as you look at it, I think as people who usually are using trained data sets, they're usually very open and they're going to communicate that. If they're not, they're probably not going to talk about it too much. So it's just something to consider. So here's the same way you can look at it. That's kind of this transparency score. So you can we'll provide all this presentation as a handout, and you can have this as a reference if you're ever looking at a model, if you're deciding you want to use it. But the other two options actually are Getty and Shutterstock, and Shutterstock actually licenses their data set to OpenAI, which is kind of nice. So there are some other options out there outside of Adobe, but I think for our sake, we're using Adobe just because it's very accessible, very approachable for most people. No, I think AI presentation will be complete without some sort of prompt reference sheet. I think there's a few things I've learned in using this. It's important to separate how you want to see whatever you're trying to render and what you want to see. And maybe not all of us are familiar with just camera options. And how to describe, say, if you were to ask a photographer to go uh, do a site visit and take some shots of a particular site, how would you communicate that? And what would you recommend for that? So I think so learning those kind of terms are very useful. And one way to learn them is just to use them as a prompt, and you'll kind of see how they come out. There's a lot of other components like around describing the scene that are really valuable that I find. If you describe the location, it's using a lot of data there to get the atmosphere right. Describing the atmosphere, what type of day is it outside, if it's inside or outside, and as well as the environment lighting. And I would kind of separate those two and separate your environment lighting from artificial lighting. And I would say, as far as like industry terms, I don't know how many times I've tried to say put in a recessed troffer and it has no idea what that is, or really messes it up. So that I think when we're describing artificial lighting, we got to make sure we lean into generic terms, and some are better than others. They are always getting a little better. So over time, I think we'll get those industry terms in. The other big thing that really influences your output is the aspect ratio. So pay attention to that. Most of the models will give you various options. And what I've noticed is that a lot of times you can adjust the whole representation. Actually, the AI models want to jam whatever's in your prompt into that aspect ratio. So sometimes if you're like, why isn't this quite looking right? And you change the aspect ratio to a wider aspect ratio, it might actually greatly improve what you're expecting. Maybe not the precision isn't right, but maybe some of the composition, we'll say. So I like to approach prompting and creating content from two main ways. One is this is more of your formulaic method, we'll say, using a reference sheet, and you're kind of picking out these components and you structure it, and it's very formulaic in the sense that you can just swap out different terms. There's a completely different way that I find a little bit faster, and it's great, especially when I'm working on early conceptual design work, and that's reverse prompting. I love using this. I think Midjourney has a lot of great tools around this. So you can actually drop in an image. It's really important, at least from our perspective, again, from a least risk approach, we always want to drop in images that we own the licenses to. But you can use Adobe Stock, go find an image or something like that if you're trying to find quick references, or you can use your own references, right, of photography that you've used or taken. And you you put in the image, and it's going to give you a bunch of descriptive ways to describe that space. And what's great is that you can click on these and it'll fill out your text prompt for you. So it's really fast, really efficient, and you don't have to put on your writer's hat and figure out all these creative words to describe this space. It's super useful. The other one is that Midjourney will actually generate full prompts. And so I use this image, it generated 4 prompts. You'll notice that it did not represent them 100% or even close, we'll say. But you can kind of see, okay, well, here's this prompt and here's kind of what I'm getting, and maybe that's working for my concept, maybe it's not. But that's another way to do it. Sometimes these prompts work, sometimes they don't. So there's a little bit of trial and error for sure. The other option is you can use any other large language model for the most part. Most of them will reverse prompt. And what I like to do is, so here's an example. You can tell that's not super creative or thoughtful. It's just trying to get all the words out there. But I wanted to describe this image, but I wanted it to format it to the strengths of each model. And I think that's a very important differentiation when you're working with these. You can use the same prompt for different models, but you'll probably you'll get different results anyway. But some of them work better with different types of prompts. So in this case, this is a current Firefly output, and I think it turned out pretty good. I asked it to match accuracy. This is the kind of like maybe the comical part. It says it's 85 to 90%. I'd say it's like 50%, and that goes into call it quantitative versus qualitative measurements. Text, I think, is a lot easier to verify that it's the correct text or it's accurate. Images, there's not a lot of great systems out there. A lot of times they rely on humans to review the images and say, all right, this is close or accurate. And our humans are really good at picking out inaccuracies, we'll say. So that's why it's images usually generally take or there's a lot there to get something good. So here's an example of what that would look like, the output of the prompt. And I have wildly different prompt structures for each different model, and you can kind of see that here. And you can see why each one is a little different. And this kind of gives you some insights to how you want to approach your structure for your prompts as well. What do these look like? So if I were just to take that reversed image prompt, text only from this image, and place it into each one of these models, this is my output. Now this is just one of the outputs, right? They're going to use randomized seeds, and I'm going to get a ton of outputs. So that's one thing to consider. I would say OpenAI's, they're very consistent. So there's something, well, whatever they're doing on the back end, usually if I keep on asking it for the same thing, I get something very similar. Whereas Midjourney and Firefly, you can adjust the settings, but for the most part, they have a decent mix of outputs. And I think this is kind of where we run into a lot of trouble, or a lot of people stop, say, all right, I put in my text prompt, but I want more control. And I would say, currently, today's current state is you don't have a ton of control, but we do have some control to influence our output. So it's not gonna. There's a lot of wiggle room though. So, and I think right now, from a use case perspective, I see there's a huge opportunity in conceptual design and early design. The further you get along, through your design process, the more the less AI is probably going to help you. But it's getting closer and it's pushing into more and more accurate output. So here's a few ways to increase your accuracy, I'll say. So one way is to take that text reference and then add the image reference. This is really just how close can I get to the original input. And so you can see that ChatGPT or OpenAI's GPT-4o really stuck to the structure and the image. But Midjourney and Firefly were different, but they're kind of along the same lines. And it's like, all right, I'm really digging these. I kind of want to explore different variations. But you'll notice there's a lot of flaws here, right? You're gonna have to go clean up this stuff if you ever want to use it, outside of just early concepts. Another way to do it is to say, okay, I like this space, and think of this as more of the structure of the space. So Firefly uses the term composition, but there is really what's happening is on the AI terms, it's a control net. It's saying, okay, I have this image. I'm going to apply a depth map that represents the depth of the space, or there's very different control nets. I'm not sure exactly which ones Firefly is using, but they kind of say, okay, what is the architecture of this space without any textures? And then I want to apply this style to it. And this style is almost the complete opposite, right? It's dark, it's black and golds, a quite significant shift from this. And you can see how each model does it a little differently. So, so again, that's a really great tool to use. And you can also adjust the strength of each one. How much do you want the architecture to drive the design, or how much do you want the style to drive the design? And I'll show you that here in a second as well. So here's one, and I think someone mentioned a tool. I think there's some tools out there doing this. Say I have something very simple. I don't have any design. I just have the basic architecture. I can use that as my structural reference, my composition reference, and then apply the new style to it. And you can kind of see how each one addresses that. And I think this is probably one of the strengths of Adobe Firefly. Yes, there's a ton of flaws in the image, but if I'm just trying to say, hey, here's my basic structure, here's a style I want to implement, let me get it as close as I can to this space, we'll say, this style to this space. So I think that's a pretty effective solution. All right, let's try this live. This is always a little risky, but let's do it. So right now, so here's a workflow. By the way, I'm using ChatGPT, but it can be any other. If you have a large language model you like, go for it, try it. Their O3 model is pretty solid. I am using folders. So they have these, or projects, sorry. I have a project folder for, see, I'm working on Mother's Day Mother's Day ideas coming up. Don't forget, it's May 11th. AI education. And I've been kind of working on everything we want to talk about today in here, and I have it all organized. I've provided some early descriptions on exactly how I wanted to talk and respond to me. I asked it to be funny. It tries. But it makes it entertaining for me to read. I'm definitely having a lot of fun with this, and as you kind of read these things, I usually laugh. So enjoy the conversation, we'll say. Um, So one of the examples we wanted to look at today was, we can ask for it actually. Let's do it. Does anybody have, let's see, is the chat on? Does anybody have any suggestions for the type of space? So what we're going to do on this first one is just try a prompt for a type of space. And what I want, actually, I'm going to take that prompt sheet. So for example, I took that entire presentation image and just gave it to ChatGPT and said, hey, here's 3 prompts. Give me 3 prompts each for those various tools. And I just asked it to give me 3 more, and it's just mixed them all together, just did a big old mix. So first, let me try this. While I'm doing this, if anybody, we're going to try to uplight a tree outside at night. So we'll give it a try. And you'll notice that there definitely are some limitations. It's not going to be perfect, but you can kind of see the workflow, and it's only going to get better. So so that's one thing to consider. But so say I created this prompt using that prompt reference, and then I'm going to throw this into Firefly just with the prompt, and I'm not going to put anything in here, any of these sources. They also have the option for photo or art. I always select photo. And then there's a few different models. For the longest time, for about a year, they've had this Image 3 model, and I have not been Adobe's friend about this one. I think it's like, all right, I can commercially use this stuff, but there's a massive quality issue that I would never want to use this commercially. Like I wouldn't want to show it to anyone. I'll use the early design stuff, but it's never going to leave my doors purely from a quality perspective. But this Image Gen 4.0, or this 4, sorry, is pretty good. I've been pretty happy with the results, and let's just try it. Let's try this Image 4 first. So I took that, copied it from ChatGPT, and we'll just see. This is looking for macro lens shot of town in the Rocky Mountains Cafe. So Just talking about a few different things, but I'd say the quality's pretty good. It's hard to tell this is AI, I will say. And I don't have a ton of control over the lighting. I did a kind of a generic representation there. But I'm getting something. And here's the fun thing, actually. This is a weird shot, and I have significantly changed my approach to how I want to communicate a lighting design. And maybe this is just an evolution of just my own strengths and growths, but I want to create a space um, that tells a story, and I want to tell that story through various images in the space. And sometimes it's not about the light fixtures. Sometimes it's about other surfaces or the warmth of something or the fireplace or something like that. You're trying to create the scene, and I know a lot of you are probably really good at this. And I almost don't show any lighting fixtures. You know, it's more there's other components that really tell the story, but it's a lighting solution that brings it to life. So that's a fun one. So that's one. If we do image generation for Ultra, we can see what that looks like. That's a little bit better. It only does one at a time, and it takes a little bit more time. One thing to consider, you're running on credits usually, so this one's going to burn up your credits a little bit faster. I so far have not had an issue. It's not even loading my credits, but um, didn't quite get the depth of field here, but kind of an interesting shot. So we'll kind of see. But the quality is really good. Again, it's really hard for me to pick out that this is AI. Usually when you get small things further away from the camera, those are usually your tells. But pretty happy with the results. Not again, this is more in the photorealistic versus the fantasy kind of style, I would say. But sometimes they can be a little drab too, so you got to spice them up if they come across too flat. Let's try Midjourney. All right. Here's an interesting thing with Midjourney. I'm putting aspect ratios in there, but it's not super critical. But they just came out with version 7 a few weeks ago. Not all capabilities are there, but one of the interesting things with Midjourney is that if you're using version 7, you need to use a trained profile. So you go in and you pick your favorite images, and it starts creating these rankings. So you go through, and these are actually really close, so it's kind of hard for me. Maybe I like the depth of field like this. And you just go through this for like 500 images, and it creates a personalized profile for the types of images that you like to create. And you can create several different ones. Maybe you want one that's a little more photorealistic and architectural. Train it for those, and it'll take you 5-10 minutes, right? And then or maybe you want something that's a little more artistic. You can train it for that as well, and you can pick these different profiles. So super useful, and I think the results end up being a lot better, in my opinion, or a lot more in line with my expectations. Maybe that's a better way to say it. Let's see. Let's see what went wrong here. Oh yeah, it's this. You can't add weights, I don't believe. And Midjourney 7. So a few capabilities that they're still developing. And then Sora, I knew this was Sora takes a little bit longer. They usually take several minutes, so I ran these ahead of time just so you can see. So here's kind of what that one looks like. A nice cup of apple cider there. Okay, here's Midjourneys. So I think the results are getting pretty good. Pretty photorealistic. It's not perfect. There's some issues you can clean up. But I think for early conceptualization stuff, I love using this tool. Okay, did anyone write in the chat an outdoor scene that we want to? Oh, sorry. Yeah, the prompt is low level camera, macro lens, 2:3 aspect ratio, Rocky Mountain Village Cafe interior, frosted glass mug on a light maple bar, chandeliers and recessed downlights, atmosphere, winter twilight, environment lighting, blue hour, soft glow. It feels like a mismatch of little word salad there, but it ends up picking a lot of those things. And it picked up the depth of field I was kind of wanting on that one. But I'll read out the next one. An outdoor. So actually, here I'll show you this. So here's kind of one of the things I started doing, and I changed it so I could copy these a little better. Here, let me zoom it in too. Sorry for text. I said, I would like to apply this lighting to a daytime photo. Can you help me create a daytime environment? Then create a prompt along with this image to apply that effect to the new image. Sounds kind of weird, but I needed to create the base image. So let's see. So let's try it. Can you create a new base image for each model and let's see, and make it a what should we make here? I'll accept any input. Maybe it's I'm all ears.
Hang on, wait. Can you create a new base image for each model?
What type of space would we like to make? Medical
There you
spa?
go.
All right, we'll try it. I'm gonna make it an outdoor medical spa because we're trying to light up a tree, but that sounds kind of nice actually. Med- Spa. So that's gonna create a few things. And this O3 model is a little bit slower, but usually I get a lot better results. I also asked it to put it in these nice little copy and paste boxes, so that will save you some time. But you can kind of see the main workflow is usually starting with the large language model. It's telling me what I'm wanting here. Starting with large language model, refining my prompts there as opposed to just brute force or formulaically doing it. Even if I knew what I was typing, it would just take me a long time just to type it, even if I'm really fast. So let's try um, let's try this Adobe Firefly. And then I'm gonna ask one more thing. Okay, now make the night time prompt to match yep, if I can spell. Don't have to spell it, I guess, correctly. So for Adobe Firefly, the prompt is around a photorealistic daytime image of a minimalist medical spa courtyard. We can change a lot of things on this, but let me also do the Firefly image. I will do the Midjourney one. This is a fun speed test too, because you'll see that Midjourney is probably the fastest. Adobe Firefly is probably the next. Oh, that's nice. Let me try their image 4 as well. I know I'm bouncing around a lot, sorry. Let me do the Sora one. Oops. Get out of here. Give me here. I'm not paying for the extreme version, so I gotta wait for that one to finish. Okay. So here's Midjourney. These are pretty good. Starting points, right? I've got these nice trees I'm gonna uplight. And then Adobe Firefly. Let's see. Should we try this one? Yay, nay. Should we try it? Let's give it a shot. I like this image. Okay.
Yes.
I have the image here. I can start to use it as my composition reference. So that's the structure. And then I don't want to use it as a style reference. I want to use that uplight image as my style reference. So I have this tree light uplight image. And then I'm going to go back to ChatGPT, and it gave me my new prompt to it's saying generative fill, but we're not going to do that. Change the time of day to early evening, blue hour, lower overall brightness, so limestone paving and buildings sit in a cool shadow. Insert one recessed circular LED uplight, 3000K, 25-degree beam, just off trunk for every Japanese maple. Is that a Japanese maple? Must be. I'll trust it. I'm not great with identifying trees. Sorry about that. Illuminate trunks and the underside of foliage only. Let the reflecting pool mirror the warm tree glow. That's going to be interesting. And the indigo sky. Keep the rest of the scene unlit. No additional lights. So right now I have a few things I'm influencing. I have the text. I have my reference image. That's my structure. And I can adjust the strength. I find that using a higher strength pair usually really keeps that structure. I want to keep that structure as much as I can. Sometimes it gets a little goofy though. And then let's see, on this one, I think I'll do a strong visual intensity and just reduce that one. Maybe. Now let me see. Let's do this. Let's do 50 visual intensity but the strength of that is at 100. Oops. Generate that. So let's see if Sora's done. A lot of times Sora will ask you to improve their models by picking their favorite one. You don't have to. And then I'll run that. So you can generate on 3 different models at the same time if you want. All right. What do we think? Looking pretty good. So we went from this image to that image. It turned out pretty nice. I think I got the lighting effect I was looking for. It transferred pretty well. It's not perfect. I'm getting some weird glares and stuff. But so let's do something. Here, let me pick my favorite. I want that reflecting pool in there. Let's try that one. All right, I like this image. I'm gonna go touch it up. So I have Photoshop here. And I'm going to pull it in and use some of their generative cleanup tools. So I don't like these lights. Or I don't like the glare of the lights. Maybe that's a better way to say it. And I'm using their remove tool. There's a lot of different solutions in here. They do have this find and remove distractions. Sometimes there's people or power lines or something like that. That's kind of nice. But if you just more or less go over, highlight whatever area you want to remove, it usually does a pretty good job of clean. Oh, I say it. Now I say it. It doesn't. Let's see if this one does it. Nope. Maybe it's further away. Yeah, further away works a little better. It's a little bigger. Broad strokes. Happy little generative AI trees. All right. Not bad. Not bad for a few minutes of work. To kind of get us there. Again, it's not perfect, but it's pretty close, and that's something that what you'll probably end up doing a lot of times, especially as the closer you're trying to get to accurate, the more time you'll just spend, and I think that's usually the trade-off. So if you're saying, hey, I really want this to be incredibly accurate, it kind of messed with the building a little bit, you're just going to have to run a lot more generations for it to get to that closer spot. So I would say historically, when I was using Firefly Image 3, I was probably doing 30 to 50 generations before I got something that was close to what I liked, and even then I wasn't very happy with it. I would say now I'm probably doing, I've only been testing it for a week, but I'd say I probably do about 12 or so, and I'm usually find one I'm pretty happy with. and or it's close enough that I can go in and clean up really fast, doing what I just did there. So, okay, I know I kind of went a little bit longer, but let's see. I'm happy to answer some questions. Let's see, I got a healing garden. And I can run some of these while we're answering these. Let's see. Right, these prompts for a healing garden. And then what was the other question? Can you ask ChatGPT how to write the prompts for other tools? Yes, and it's almost exactly what I'm doing here. I want you to create the prompt for these image generation tools, but that can also be true for any other tools. If you're interacting with some of the codes or some of the solutions that are writing code, or if you or even another large language model, it's like write this that works well for Copilot. You know, it'll do that as well. Does that answer your question, Carrie? Sorry, that's what you're going for.
Yeah, it looked like that's what you were doing. Like here,
Mm-hmm.
you're showing ChatGPT, and it looks like it's spitting out code for those.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I want to add to it because during the presentation you jumped straight into it but it's basically understanding the workflow that you put together, because basically we're getting to the end of the whatever to the process that you've created to getting to work and interact with these platforms and software. So I got a bit of time to me to understand that you were actually first starting from ChatGPT to create the prompts that then you copy and paste into and you ask ChatGPT to create those prompts for the 3 different platforms. So for ChatGPT to find the best wording and coding to relate and to interact with the other platforms, and then you copy and paste, and then you start building stuff. It's just great. I mean, but it took me a bit of time to understand that that's the actually workflow process that you've created to do this. Personally, I would have start jumping straight into Firefly and just typing ideas and concepts. But this is basically a lot of time that I just saved into my personal journey with this. Beautiful.
Yeah, I think that's that. Thanks for rephrasing. Yeah, apologize. I get so excited and just jump in. I totally. I think chat. I usually start with a large language model of some sort in most cases. One, to either understand how something works, or to have it understand and then give me what I need to use thereafter. And you can see that and when you ask, there's a few like keys. If you format it, ask it to format it. You can always just grab I'll be honest, half the time I'm working on my phone and I'll just be like, I need to be able to easily copy and paste this puppy, so trying to select it just takes a few more seconds if I'm using my phone. And just being able to put it in a format where I can just grab it, copy that, and paste it saves me so much time. And you can iterate very fast this way, so you're not spending all your time typing. And you could also ask it with voice as well if you wanted to, if you didn't want to even type the question. Yeah, and then you can try the different models. So I think Adobe Firefly is getting us pretty close to something we can use. We know they're training on the right material, and they're providing proper attribution. So I think there's a lot of great things happening on the Adobe side that I couldn't say a week ago. So I'm glad they improved their model recently. Very timely for sure. And then same thing with Midjourney, very fast, great for iterating, um, especially through early concepts. I think there's a lot of stuff there, but this will never leave our doors. It's great for early concepts and stuff, but personally, we don't like to use this outside of that. Um, and the same thing. Oh, sorry, I did want to show you this one thing though in Midjourney. So you can load up your images here, and I could pick a new image. Say, let me try. Let's see. I'm gonna do this hospital, this patient room. It's got a lot of fun colors in there and stuff. But you see that I selected it. It's like where's the reverse prompting? So here's where that is. If you click the eye here, that's where it shows those different things. And the known artist is actually pretty important. I sure hope there's not a known artist because we rendered it ourselves. But okay, we didn't. Good. No known artist. Checks out. Where you can pick those options. So I put that image in there. It's describing things for me, and I can click the things I like. Obviously, I'm going a little fast here, so I'm not sure exactly what it's going to do. But the other thing is, now that I have it in there, I can go select the image option. And when I have that children's hospital selected or that patient room selected, if you drop it into this describe, so it doesn't show up until you drag and drop it into that describe area. And then it's going to give you these descriptions here. And you can have the option to run all prompts and see what it does. So what I really like about Midjourney is that you can just generate a ton of stuff really fast. Like I'm running a lot of things simultaneously. So that's something to consider as part of your workflow. If you're like, hey, I just need to get a bunch of fast stuff out there just to get me in the right direction. Um, it's pretty good. And then Sora takes a lot longer, but is a little more accurate. And Firefly's, the one that's kind of somewhere in the middle, but you can use Image 4, it looks like. That's pretty fast, and Ultra if you want a higher quality. What else? Let's see.
Josh, can you just talk about which of the tools you're using are free or have a monthly fee or annual fee?
I don't know about Firefly because it's built into our corporate pricing structure. I think they have, I think if you buy their creative, um, their Creative Cloud kind of package, I think you get credits with that. And I think that's $60 a month, but it's like Photoshop, After Effects, everything. So if you have one of those tools, you probably have Firefly credits. They kind of have been building that into their solution. So let me know if that's incorrect, if someone is
Yeah,
paying a
I just
subscription.
noted that I have the Credit Cloud, have a with a package of softwares from Adobe, and I noticed these 1,000 credits or something. Are they
Nice.
how are they spent? Like one image you generate is a couple of credits. How does that work?
Yeah. So it'll you can kind of see here. For some reason, mine's not showing up. But it'll tell you how many credits you're using. So usually, I think it's around 20 credits. Doesn't tell me here, but I believe it's around 20 credits for like the higher end one. And it might be 20 credits for all four of the other ones. But you might just have to try a few and see how much it's going to use. But it hasn't been an issue, I'll say, so yet. I haven't run out of credits,
So
unless
you
no one
have
presenting or something.
you have the 1,000 credits a month, because these are renewed monthly for
Yep.
what I understand. So
Yeah.
1,000 credits is actually worth for doing a bunch of work. I mean, you haven't run out. You have or you spend like 5,000 credits a month.
Yeah,
in-
I
in order for what you
probably
do.
again I haven't been using it a ton just because of the quality issues until recently. I might run into that issue now, but I would say now that I'm getting to results I like faster, I don't have to use as many credits either. So I would say at most I probably have used 1,000, but I think most of the
Okay.
time I'm 500 or so. Um, but that's my use case. So everyone's going to be a little different depending on how they're going to use it. So I usually don't run out of credits, and usually they give you packages that you can add on to if you ever need more. Midjourney has like a $10 tier. So if you just want to, I think, and I think all of these options are super accessible, right? You don't need to have any special software or anything, right? It's all web-based. So you can just have an account. Midjourney, I think, is $10. I think we're on a $60 a month plan just because we use it a little bit more. So it really just depends on how much you're going to use it. And it gives you options to it gives you a few other things when you buy it annually. I think it's $560 or something annually. Sora, this is my personal one. We don't really use this too much for work. stuff, but Sora is there's a free version, so you can create create images for free. You probably just can't create that many. And I just looked at their pricing options for how much it costs them, and it costs them about a quarter of compute resources for every image you create. So this is like 50 cents here. So you're getting for the free plan, you're getting your money's worth. So, but for if my plan, they have a $20 a month plan that I seem to get a ton of use out of, and I get access to a lot of their other models, their language models. So for me, it's worth it. Um, they have a higher tier, like a $200 a month tier, but I think that's for most people, that's not necessary at all. What else? Or what other questions we have? Or you'd like to, is there anything we want to try?
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
When you started generating the other images, you had a base image for reference. Can I use like an image, say, for example, I created a lighting plan in CAD and I just save that in a JPEG format, which is like an image. Can I use that to generate an image and then, just use a prompt describing what it is? I ask that because, if I'm very specific with the scale of the room and where everything else is placed, is it possible?
You're saying using the floor plan to define what it would look like inside,
Just to
or
start to build from, instead of using, you had an initial image of a tree uplight, and then we started
Mhm.
from there and generated everything else. If my image is like a lighting plan that I've already designed in 2D,
Mhm.
specifically where the lights are placed, everything else, can I use that to start generating an image?
Um, I don't know. I would say not with Firefly and Midjourney because they're just taking pixels and using the image as a reference. But Sora might be able to. I've asked it to do some pretty interesting things and say, hey, here's my lighting plan. Can you show me what it looks like? I haven't tried it. Here, let me just try something real fast. See if it'll pull in Revit style. I don't know if it's gonna work or not. Um, so I'm curious if I said that and then gave it to, yeah, these aren't quite lighting plans, are they? Um, I would, if I were to try something, I would start with Sora. Because I think it really understands what things are. And if you say, here's a lighting plan, now show me what the space looks like, it's not going to be accurate. It's 100%, but it'll probably be the closest that you're going to find today. Because I've said, take I've had a picture of a fixture and my space, and said put this fixture in that space, and it did it pretty accurately. I would say the scale. The thing that surprised me was the scale. Most of the other image generation solutions don't get the scale right at all. It's wildly off in most cases, but Sora is probably the best at understanding scale somehow, which is kind of wild because the product reference was not, there was no reference in the image for it to know what the scale was. So it somehow knew what that product was, after probably scraping all the web data somewhere. So, but it's interesting. So yeah, it's a good one to try out. I need a good baseline somewhere, but I'll try that out. And see if I can make that work as well.
Okay,
Good
thanks.
question. Yeah.
Josh, I know we talked a lot about imagery. In the beginning of the conversation, someone had mentioned spec writing. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around how AI can benefit me with that. Do you have any examples?
For spec writing, I don't have a lot on that one. I can't support you. I don't know if there's anyone, but we got a great audience. So is there anyone on the call who's tried Parspec or any of those solutions? Is that what Nikki Nicole, is that what you're talking about? Is like Parspec's
Yeah,
a
I'm
solution?
I'm interested in seeing how that would make my life easier.
Yeah, yeah. I would say outside of ParSpec, there might be some ways to create your own custom GPT in for ChatGPT, and then you can use that as a baseline, like give it the format of the spec. Say you have a particular format with a letterhead and everything. You might be able to actually use that as your reference, but I haven't messed with it too much, I'll be honest. But if there's anyone that has anyone on the call messed with that? Yeah.
I haven't, but can you just show us how you create a GPT? That was something that I didn't know about until you mentioned that to me
Oh
in
yeah,
a previous call.
sure. So GPTs are kind of fun. The trick is you have to have a website and have some website data, so it has to be tied to something. So I made a fake website, or I bought I bought a website. Whoops. And they just changed this a little bit. Let me see if I can make it here. Oh, here it is. So if you go to, sorry, there's a create. So I've created a few GPTs. Most of them just fun little ones. Lighting designer GPT is kind of fun. And so if you go into here, you can have a conversation to say, I want, let's see, let's try this. I want to create a lighting, documentation. Combine specs and organized. That's just an example. You can also add some data, but it can start to build one for you, and you can adjust the tone and all that stuff. And then it'll probably give you some sample specs. um, let's try this. Whoa, don't go there. See if I have I don't have a spec available. Let me pull one from our website. Anyway, if you pulled in a spec, it might actually do something with it. And I'm curious just to see if it will. Um, choo-choo-choo. Sorry. Thanks for being patient here.
But essentially what you're doing is you're creating like your own file within Chat GPT that saves, not that it saves the conversation because I know it already does that, but like it thinks specific in a specific way, right?
Yeah, it's
Like you
like
train
you're
it to,
you're yeah, so a lot of times people write these very elaborate prompts to say, "Hey, I want you to be a writer," and it does all these things. And you have to, and it usually ends up being this very elaborate prompt. A GPT is a way to kind of bucketize that. So you could say, all right, I want to create a GPT that represents, say, a person. Say this, and this person is really great at creative writing and has this type of tone. And here's some examples of the type of writing style I'd like it to be. And then that GPT, now you can always just access that GPT and get kind of a reliable response from them. So some people do things like make it an accountant, make it a lawyer. You got to be careful with those ones. But that's one example that I know some people have done, especially if you're a small organization just trying to understand something. Say you don't have a person for that position, but you need to understand what that would do.
yeah.
So let's see. Um, let's see. Show me. Let's see what it does. So it just kind of summarized the spec sheet, so it didn't actually pull in the spec. We'd have to tell it what the spec would be. But the nice thing is, it's a pretty nice
Mhm.
organization.
So I wonder, Nikki Nicole, like, I don't know what your process is for writing a fixture schedule, but sometimes I write the part number before I fill out the rest of the schedule. I wonder if you could start to, like, you could input part numbers and then just have it populate the rest of the schedule or generate text that you could, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
let's try it.
think Josh was talking about doing dailies, and I think it's like you could probably learn just by trying different things, you know, spending 5 minutes a day trying new things and until you get what you want.
Sure. Yeah, okay.
All right, I'm a slow typer. This is why I don't type out the formulaic one. So like here's an example of that. And then I could tell it if I had a format that I wanted it to be, to your point, I could
Mhm.
use that format.
Right. You could have it limit what information it extracts
Exactly. You
from
could
the
say,
touch sheet.
yeah, and you could even, if you even have your own spec, if you're using Excel or Revit's
Mm-hmm.
system, you could just copy that or copy an image of that and use that to say, put it in this format. I want a description, dimensions, lumens, wattage,
Hmm.
however you want to define that. And it'll format it for you that way. But I would say it probably might take I did this pretty quickly. It might take a little bit of work to get reliable results. You might have to
Yeah.
play around with it a little bit, but it's not too far off.
But this is great for just putting in a part number. That just saved me about a half an hour of typing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you can say like, can you like there? I would like doing that because it's I usually I'm pulling something in and out of something. It didn't put it in the exact format I'd liked, but if you want, you can copy the whole chat, or just grab different sections too.
Mhm.
But yeah, just reducing your
Cool.
typing speed. That's a great example. But you can copy the whole thing right here.
Oh,
It
yeah,
copies
that's
all the
great.
text.
Thank you for that example.
Mm-hmm.
So I know we've gone over and we're gonna wrap it up, but are there any last minute comments or questions from anyone on the call?
No, I just wanted to thank Josh for his time. It's amazing, amazing. I didn't realize the the extension and the it's a completely new universe. And I just getting into interacting with Chat GPT, and this opened up completely new dimension to understanding this. So thank you for what you've shown and you've shared with us.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's a lot of fun. Have fun out there. And you can create images right from ChatGPT too. Just say, show me an image. So you don't have to go somewhere else if you don't want to. So
Uh,
yeah, have fun. Oh, go ahead.
I've been realizing how many platforms now have these AI add-on that starts helping you to get through process of work. I mean, probably next step is gonna get our dialogues or AGI 32, that you can interact and throw in a selected fixture and a site and say, like, get me a mounting height, for example, for an exterior parking lot that I'm working with. Probably you just prompt in some instruction and select a fixture and it can throw them to you. And I've been spending a week and a half or two, testing height levels
Yeah.
to achieve minimum, 0.5 foot handles at, parking lot corner, and getting through those processes in a fraction of the time that we do today.
Yeah, I will say that's one thing you bring up a good point. I would caution mathematical accuracy and using most of the LLMs. I would say that's one thing that it struggles with for some reason. So just be careful with anything, any math, I'll say,
Yeah,
in ChatGPT. I've asked it to do general lighting calcs and stuff like that, and it was very confident, but it was incorrect, unfortunately. So it's getting better. It's getting better, but that's one where I've tested it. I'm like, I'll wait till it gets better. But you're right. It's around the corner for sure, something like that.
I mean, for other developers, I mean, the Dialux guys, I mean, maybe, based on their platform and their codes and their coding, they can, start getting an add-on that is an AI interaction to help you go through processes of testing and much quicker. But anyways, in my personal, approach to image and what I present to clients and such is, I always try to keep it very referential, very conceptual. I mean, we never get hired to, actually, it's not part of our contract to provide photorealistic renderings of the project of what we're doing, right? That's we're not the, we're not in charge of the architecture or the interior design, so it's basically out of our scope to manage all that, to get a photo, an image of a lit space, So these flaws in not being very realistic of what you're showing is actually good, because it could be, against you at the other time when a client refers to that image and said, this doesn't look exactly like what you've shown to me, So keeping that conceptual part of the image that you're presenting is actually, I mean, shouldn't for me, I don't need for it to be more than that, but being able to get your idea through an image, rather than, today it's just going through databases of images and try to get something that represents what you have in your head, but not exactly that. It's very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And storytelling too. I think there's a huge opportunity there. To your point of like, this isn't the exact thing, but I want you to feel this way when you're in this space. I love it.
Okay. I think we're going to wrap up, but thank you so much, Josh, and thank you, Audrey, for setting up the Zoom. And we will send a link out and probably some kind of AI generated summary of the meeting
Sounds good.
to all the people who registered. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.